maybe in the next couple of days. So we'll see. Hopefully that goes well for her.
Pranam Dandavat Maharaj.
Oh, Dr. Sahu.
Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam to everyone.
Dandavat Pranam.
How are you?
I'm okay. I was glad to hear from you again.
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm also okay. Not very fine, but okay.
Okay.
A long time actually. I missed your lectures.
Yes.
But
We are in Krishna's hands, actually. So there you are. We are in Krishna's hands, so we have to depend upon his mercy only.
I thought I must join today.
Huh? You have time, okay. Yes, there's one verse, I don't remember perfectly. Nali Lila Laga Tajalam, Mati Tararam. You heard that verse before? That Shankaracharya, I think. That we are like a drop of water on the leaf, lotus leaf. You ever see the water drop on the lotus leaf? Sometimes you can see a water drop on the lotus leaf. And on the lotus leaf, there are very thin, very fine hairs. So the water, when it comes on the leaf, it doesn't waterlog, doesn't become waterlogged. It remains there on the surface. So that drop of water on the surface can easily roll off. Can very easily roll off. A very nice, okay. Can very easily roll off. So that is life in this world. Life in this world easily can be finished. We can easily roll off the leaf of life.
Very true.
Any moment.
Any moment.
Young, old, whoever. So we are not in ultimate control of that.
Yes. What about you? What about the death? How do you define death?
How do I define that?
Yes.
A very, very interesting question. Because life and death are not opposites. Excuse me. It says, the day of your death, day of your death is like something that is established for you already, even from your birth. Your day of death is already established. So that between life, what we call life or birth, and death. So that's the opposite. Birth and death are opposite. But life and death are not opposite. Life is the portion between birth and death, we can say.
Yes.
That existence between birth and death, that is what we call life. But that's not life either, because what is that, birth and death? Birth means the formation of a body, and the death means the dissolution of the body. Is that life? That we call life because that's what we identify with, that distance between birth and death. But you can say, from the point of birth, you can say, I am living. But as you are living, you are going toward your death point. So in the same time you are living, you also can say, I am dying. Because after so much years or so much time, I'm going to die. So from birth, we say I'm living. From the point of death, we say I'm going toward death. so I'm dying. Then what are you doing? You're living or you're dying? You're doing both, actually. And in biology, they call that, they have a name for that. Living, they call anabolism. And dying, they call catabolism. So at every moment in your body, there is this going on. Anabolism and catabolism. Building up and tearing down. Anabolism and catabolism. Is that Shanta Maharaj?
Yes.
Maharaj Dandavad. Shanta Maharaj is here.
His audio is connecting still.
Huh?
His audio is connecting still.
Okay. So
Anyways,
anabolism,
yes.
catabolism. So we're always living and we're always dying. And these together is called metabolism. And that we call life. Metabolistic process. Combining the living and dying process together. Balancing. It's the balance between those two. So life is more than just dying, or more than just death, or more than just birth. It's a whole process that takes its appearance in this world as birth and death.
Can we take death in terms of accomplishment?
Sorry? What's that?
Can we take death in terms of accomplishment?
Death in terms of accomplishment.
Death in terms of accomplishment?
Yes.
I don't know accomplishment.
You die after you accomplish everything you're supposed to accomplish, maybe.
Oh. I don't think so. I mean, if a person wants to be a millionaire, for instance, right? Everybody wants to be a millionaire. Who doesn't want to be a millionaire? They're working so hard to get this. Or maybe they won a Nobel Prize or something like that. And they work very hard to get acknowledgement, recognition. Doesn't mean if you don't accomplish those things, you have what? That you have died? Not necessarily. You can die with or without accomplishment. So that's not the criterion. Seems to me, I don't think there's a criteria.
Like in case of Bhagavad Gita,
Huh?
Krishna, in case of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said in the chapter 2, he said that death is the death of the body. It's not the death of the soul,
Yes,
the death of the body.
yes.
Like, ever there is a time when you are not there and I was not there, and never there will be a time when you will not be there and I will not be there. So it's just a kind of death of the body. It's a kind of new beginning. So the kind of karma you are doing. So for that reason, you have to take, if the bad karmas, you have to take several births. And if then you have done the good karmas, then it will lead to the state of moksha and you become Atma, something like that, if I understood correctly.
Yeah. Well, and Veda tell us that there are four principles of this material nature. Miseries, they tell of miseries of this material nature. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi.
Yes.
In this material world, these four things are a problem. We think Janma is very nice. They say, happy birthday. What is happy about birth? In this world, there's so many miseries. Huh? So happy is not a good idea. Happy death is better sometimes. Janma, Mrityu means death, and Jara. Jara is old age. Huh? That's not a very happy stage either. And Vyadi. Vyadi means illness, not a very happy thing. Eh? So these things are part of the material nature. Now, what is it about material nature that makes that principle like that? That is misery. It's called Mrityalok, the planet of death. What makes material nature of that kind, which is called temporal, it lasts only for a short time. So we have to think, what is it that lasts only a short time? That is there, but it lasts only a short time. Other thing that happens like that is called dream. Dream. Dream lasts for some time, and then it ends. So this material life is like a dream. Its nature is more dreamlike than real. It's real, but it has some kind of dream nature to it because it has a start, it goes on for some time, and then it ends. So we can experience that, but who is experiencing that? We can experience that like something above all of that. We are transcend that, although it is there. At the same time, we are different from that. To experience or understand that, to see that, observe that.
Namaste.
Right.
Namaste, Dandavat.
Maharaj.
Maharaj.
Right. Hare Krishna, Linda, Didi. Hari Bol. You have it on record?
Mhm.
So, like that. These things are happening like a dream. And according to Veda, how is this material world created? What is this material world called? What is the nature of this material? How is it created? And we are told that Mahavishnu, also called Karanadakshay Vishnu, is sleeping on a causal ocean. He's asleep, yoga nidra, on the causal, and he is dreaming. And so this world is actually of a dream nature, of the dream, not our dream, but of Karanadakshay's dream, of Mahavishnu's dream. This material world is made of dream stuff. And we are participating in that dream stuff, and we call it the world. That's why it only has a temporary existence, because it's not real in that sense of the eternal. The eternal world is real. This world is apparently real because it's an imitation or dream of that world. The higher world also has everything that we have here, but it's eternal. So we are experiencing the temporary reflection, we can say, a temporary imagination of the eternal world. And we don't know that, though. We think this one is real. It's like looking in the lake, or in a mirror, even in a mirror, something reflective. If we look in the mirror, if we look in the lake, we see everything that's in the unreflected world, that's looking in the mirror, the world that's looking in the mirror. We see everything there that's in the mirror also. But then if we think the objects in the mirror are moving and talking and smiling and everything else, that's a mistake. That's an illusion. They don't do anything. They can't do anything without you. They can't smile. You're smiling. They can't smile. You can analyze them and try to say they're smiling. That's what the scientists do. They try to say this world is doing everything. They don't realize they're looking at the reflection, not the real thing. So they're caught up in the reflection and engaged in trying to explain that, which is not explainable because it's not the real thing. You can't say how the reflection, the particles in the mirror gave birth to a human being or an animal or anything. They don't do that. And they can't do that. That's not the real thing. So like that, we're stuck in that kind of a dreamlike illusion. And we're missing the spiritual dimension where the reality is actually taking place. Understand? So death is part of the illusion of reflected existence. It's called material. Material is not the real thing. That's the reflected existence of the spiritual. And when we look to the spiritual, then we'll understand. Now, how do we get to the spiritual? We have to think. Krishna gave the example in Gita, Dehi nosmin yata dehe. Dehi nosmin yata dehe, kamaram yovanam jara. He said, just like your body is changing from childhood to youth to old age, from a young child to an old person, but you are the same. So we have to think there's something that doesn't change. That's a higher thought. That requires not just looking at things and thinking, I am those things that I'm looking at. Looking at things and thinking, I'm those things, like looking in the mirror and thinking the mirror images the things. That's dumb. That's unintelligent. Person who can't think properly. Like Plato's cave, And Plato's, the analogy of the cave, you remember
Yes.
that?
Yes.
They are looking at
That's
the
very
shadows.
interesting.
They are
Yes.
looking at the shadows on the wall. Shadows on the wall look like people. They look like people are there on the shadows, and they're walking and talking and everything. And they think, well, how are those shadows walking? Or they're thinking they are the shadows. So when you look at the mirror and you think the mirror image is the reality, then that's what they do. That's called ignorance. So it requires a little thinking to understand, and a little knowledge that you may not have, that has to come to you, that there is another world, fire, and there's another world with real people, and there's shadows coming from those people, real people.
Yes.
So all those things have to be learned. We have to understand that.
Yes. There are various interpretations regarding the concept of death. Like various traditions, they speak death in a different way. Like if you take existentialist, they take like Kierkegaard will say death is a victory. It's why can't you take death as a happy concept? Like the birth, when you said happy birthday, why not the death can be celebrated? That is one way of looking at death.
Yeah.
Then there are like other Hindu schools. There is a like I don't know whether you know, there is a death center, like house as built. If you know that you want to die, so you can go to that house, and then the death will take place. So in UP, Banaras, there is a place called that the person who suppose wants to die. So you will visit to that house, you will stay back there till the death comes, you will be wait for that. So that is another notion you find is there. And the third one is the concept of Jal Samadhi was there during the time of Vedas. And the fourth one is the Mimamsa theory of karma theory, that self-immolation. If you, Mandan Mishra, he destroyed his life. He thought that whatever karma he has to do, he has already completed. फिर then वो अपने आप को जला लिए थे. So that a kind of self-immolation, suicide, you can say whatever. So then another concept in Jainism, you find there is a concept called sanlekhna. So they said that if somebody is in a disease state, So he can always ask for death. And then you have to follow the principle fasting onto death. So you have to do the fasting till the death comes. So there are various interpretations, and some of the interesting interpretations are there. Death is a part of life. It's a kind of happy state, and it's a kind of accomplishment. Pure like next birth. It's a new beginning. So all sort of. So that is what I was thinking, that I need a clarification. What are those? Have clarified any of mine?
Well, they have no concept of spirit. They have no concept of spiritual life, of eternal.
They have. Jain, they have
What?
spiritual life.
What
They
is
said
it?
that if you have the bad karmas, then you have just like the dust particles enter into your house and you clean the house. So the soul also acquired the dust particles, and through your karma again you have to remove that dust particles. Then you will get the state of moksha. That is a kind of
And what happens in
spiritual
moksha?
concept.
And what happens in moksha?
In
What-
moksha, then you do not have to take birth again.
So that's negative idea.
Yes, that's
Negative.
a Jain.
No death
Jain.
means no death. But that's negative idea. What's the
Yes.
positive idea of spirit? Do they have any positive idea of spiritual life? No. That means foolish. They're all foolish. I'd like to realize that you are not the image in the mirror. And finished. Then your life is finished. When you realize you are not the image in the mirror, then what? You're finished. Does your life stop? No. When you realize you're not the image in the mirror, then your life can really begin. Then you can have real life. Huh? And your ignorance is removed. This is the real solution. Not just to remove the ignorance, but to understand what is your real life. Spiritual life means that. To understand what is your real life. Spiritual life. Life with Krishna. Playing with Krishna. Seeing Krishna's pastimes in your lifetime. Radha and Krishna, gopis, cowherd boys. That is our Vaishnava teaching. Vaishnava. There is a real life, a real positive spiritual life, an immortal life, a life of eternality. There is there. It is there. Not just negative. Some negative. I'm not this world. I'm not this body. I'm not this death. That's negative. Maharaj?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Maharaj, you want to say something?
What is the topic of discussion, Maharaj?
Professor Sahul wants to know what is death. Why there is death.
What is death? She is a teacher in what? Sanskrit or what? You're
I'm a
Sanskrit,
teacher
right?
in philosophy. I'm a teacher in
Philosophy, what
philosophy.
philosophy? In Vedic philosophy or what? Eastern philosophy?
Like both. My specialization was I did Ph.D. in continental philosophy, Sartre and Marx. I did my Ph.D. But after that, I started teaching Indian traditions, that Buddhist, Vedant, all traditions of Indian philosophical and Jain philosophical schools.
What are you
And
teaching now?
now I'm teaching Indian theories of consciousness. One paper, other paper is truth functional logic that I'm teaching. I'm supposed to, and the value added courses, the art of being happy. So that is a course designed by recently National Education Policy. So they have 64 value added courses.
You have happiness index?
Yes, happiness index, which is so low in India,
I see.
139, I think.
So how you make people happy? What is the secret you are teaching to your students?
I see the secret is the God. One way, if you believe on that theory, you can create happiness. It's not that difficult state, but gradually you can like detachment. You have to create a state of detachment. Detachment from the anger, detachment from ego is not possible, but gradually, like I said, positivism is the only way that you can develop positive thoughts, help people, like people as much as you can do. So these
And
are
these
the
things you
ways.
learned from where?
See, I have read Upanishad, Vedant, Bhakti Vedant, and something when I speak. I feel that there is one inner soul is there who पता नहीं I just feel भगवान कुछ जो मैं बोलती हूँ वो सब लगता है कि God is there. Many of the things I just leave on Him. So let the things go like this. I cannot do many things, but since He is there within me, I feel that I can do able to do many things. I have taken the 100 assignment, not able to complete any, but still something
So
are completing.
you heard die to live, this statement which Srila Maharaj explained from Hegel.
Yes, I had last time I had a discussion with Guru Krishna Keshav. So I just heard from him about Maharaj, Bhakti Maharaj discourse starting from Descartes to Hegel, Kant, so many things, Newton. So he had written a book, Puri Maharaj. So I was listening to him. So I like that idea, but
But you
not
understood,
very convinced.
what is the meaning of die to live?
That's my understanding is different from you maybe. But yes, die to live is the most important thing that which we are doing daily life. Die to live, and
No.
every day
We are living to die.
some.
We are living to die. But die to
I
live is
don't know.
different.
Yes, die to
Generally,
live.
what people are doing, they're trying to, as Srila Puri Maharaj was explaining, they're trying to live in the dream world, but it's going to finish. So they are trying to live in the dream world, which anyway going to vanish. But there is a real world. Then you have to wake up from this dream world. Then you have to die in this dream world to live in the real world. To die in this misconception that you are living at present. So what kind of death you are looking for? Death in the plane of misconception or death in the plane of, awakened plane? What you want? So,
Death
depends
is
on,
always a awakened state. I
you want to go into a sleep. If you don't want to experience what is reality, that is also one kind of death. But you want to die in that, plane of ignorance and awaken in the higher plane. That is another kind of death. So you want to live, living to die or die to live. That you have to decide.
very rightly, very well said. See, live to die and die to live. It's always two different kinds of experience. One may be easy to accept, but there is a state of fear is there always. That dream world is
Fear for
equal.
what?
Fear for not accepting many things, as you said. Fear for not accepting your ignorance. Fear for not accepting the world which you do not want to face. And I don't know, so many.
Fear
Discuss.
comes when we are not surrendered.
Yes.
Then bhajahure mana sinanda nandana abhaya charanaravindam. Oh mind, please engage yourself in the service of Lord Krishna's devotee. then that fear will go by the grace
Yes.
of the devotees, by the association of the devotees, then we can properly surrender. So our all suffering is coming because of our separate interest. That is the plane of misconception.
Yes,
That
yes,
is
I
like,
agree.
dream world. But the plane of dedication can only be awakened by association with devotees. So that is necessary. So I was, telling that, so many students, they are going to so many teachers. When the teachers themselves, they don't know how to do good to themselves. They don't know even their own real identity. Then they are living in ignorance. They are teaching that ignorance to others. So if one can be a good student, then he can be also a good teacher.
Yes, I agree completely. There are two things here. Two things, as also I said this last class also regarding Puri Maharaj's paper. So I was like, there are two worlds. Like, we have taken back certain duties we have to assign to do, and maybe that is the way God wants us to do. See, if the God wants us to come to the state of absolute, then we can also go to that state of absolute. But
How
if
you know
God
what God
wants,
wants to do?
that's what I'm saying, that if I believe on God and I have surrendered God and I want He should do something within me so that I can come to that state. So what you said is I agree completely
In
with you.
Gita, Krishna explains that bhaktya mam abhijanati. Only devotee can know me. So that you have to become a devotee to know God's plan. Nobody can know what God wants. So you have to get devotion from where? Like Srila Puri Maharaj explains, bhakti comes from bhakti, life comes from life, and bhakti comes from bhakti. So one has to connect with that heart who has bhakti through service, not just like superficial way, through our service. Then through that bhakti, Lord will reveal us His plan. Matte smutir jnanam apanamcha. From me comes remembrance, forgetfulness, and knowledge. So, but people don't want to do that. They want to get association with Maya and the agents of Maya. Then how can they get? They only get covered from the real thing. That's
Yeah,
why Mahaprabhu came to tell Jeev Jago, to awake. And then he has given the medicine.
see,
NHE Aushadhi Mayana.
my way of understanding the things are different. Like, suppose you are
Yes.
doing some duties assigned by God in your sphere, and there are the large amount of sphere where people are living within the Maya, and you have to change their mindset. It's also a task given by the God to us, that not to escape from the world, but to live within the world and change the people's mind. People have lots of ego, anger, arrogance, material attraction to matter, and they do not know probably what they are doing, and they feel that what they are doing is right. So craze for the power, so many things, and sometimes they also need the people who can reform them. It's not that like they are maybe we are not that expect.
Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada told, those who wants to change the world, they have to undergo some change themselves, because there is a very competent person behind this world who is in charge of that world. We are not in
Yes,
charge of this world. So we have to change ourselves according to his plan. Not
yes,
that, according to our plan, this world will change. That may not
right.
happen. That's why people are suffering the anxieties. All these things are coming because they want to take a position which they are not fit to.
No, my point is that you taught me something. Srila Bhakti Maharaj, Puri Maharaj taught me something. I may not be directly pass on to whatever I have learned. Maybe I can pass it to my students little bit. because I am also not the competent, as you said very rightly. But at least I understood little bit of your bhakti mark, or of your like what you can say, sense of understanding the absolute and the self surrender. So we are passing, not we are saying, we are doing. We are just passing your knowledge to them, that little bit, because we are all every time learning. So, like for me, I always feel that I learn something from you, from Bhakti Maharaj, Puri Maharaj, from others. Every time I learn, I only takes the positive things in my life. And I said that whatsoever may be the situation, little bit, if you can do something for others, first surrender your ego. That's what I like learn from you, from others. So that way I feel that what I'm doing, it's not very bad things. Like I,
Yes, you are gaining lot of
agree.
knowledge. You are gaining
Yes,
lot of knowledge, but you are not putting into practice.
yes.
Then
Practice in
you
the
are telling, you are
sense,
like you are gaining and you are telling to others. But if you practice and you tell to others, then that will be more powerful.
yes, I understand. I completely. But that is also, I believe that complete I have given to the, I surrender in a different way. The way you said, I just surrendered every time. I cry in front of God. But I do not know. Actually, I just, there is a very difficult for me to leave one thing and go for others. I'm trying that, but not able to. So I don't know that
You are crying before God for yourself or God. For God you are crying.
I
For his happiness or your happiness you are crying.
I never look for my happiness, but I look for a state of happiness where I can work. I never look
If you
for
are
a
crying for
happiness.
God's happiness, then it is good crying. But you are crying for yourself, that is not good crying.
God is always happy. I don't think he is unhappy. He is unhappy. He has created ground for unhappiness, many things. But he is always happy. And if he has so much of power, then
Devotee means he's always trying to please the Lord, to make him happy. But even people may come to God and they have this past habit and they are doing things for their own happiness in the name of devotion and so many things.
yes,
So that is mixed devotion. Karma Mishra Bhakti and Gyan Mishra Bhakti is there. But getting pure devotion means everything is directed towards his satisfaction.
yes, maybe someday that will come. I'm waiting for that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just
Very good.
waiting, but trying my little bit knowledge, trying not to. My point is that I don't think wrong things about others. I just pray God कि मैं किसी के बारे में बुरा ना सोचूं, या मुझे कोई डिसरेस्पेक्ट नहीं करे और मैं किसी को डिसरेस्पेक्ट नहीं करूं. These are the some of the things I pray to God. That
But that is all, some kind of morality independent of absolute. Krishna told Arjuna to kill people also. So you can
is
do outwardly bad to them, in that their good is hidden, because that is the interest of the God. Because those people are not your subject, your objects. They are God's objects, right? So you have to think everything on the vision of the absolute, what he wants. And that is like dying to live. We
is
are seeing everything from our point of view, living to
living
die.
die.
But you have to see from the God's point of view everything. So that attitude has to be cultivated.
Agree, absolutely.
Thanks. Dhanyavad.
Actually,
Thank you.
becoming happy is a very minor thing. When we understand what is real, what our true nature is, there's something beyond happiness called ananda. Ananda. And that is not happiness, ananda. It's called bliss. Sometimes they call bliss ananda. Unending. It has a meaning of kind of infinity. Happiness is a finite thing. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're not happy.
Dukkha dukkha da.
But the ananda is something of it. Now, how do we get to that ananda? That's the thing. Now, do we have to get to it? Actually, you are already ananda. And our real nature is called sat-cit-ananda. Our real nature, the spiritual nature, is called sat-cit-ananda. That is the quality of the real self. So you are happy, you are joy, you are bliss. But something's covering that because you don't understand or you don't realize what you are. Once we realize what we are as spiritual beings, as servants of Krishna, Ananda automatically comes. It's there, it's in our nature. Why are people trying to become happy? Because it's like if you put a fish on the land and you give him nice food, a nice place to live, everything, the fish will be unhappy, no? Because why? He's not in his natural environment. In his natural environment, he can be very happy. And whatever you do for him, then he'll appreciate. But if you take him out of his natural environment, then no matter what you do to make him happy, he won't be, because he'll be dying. That's our position. We're taken out of our natural environment. We are spiritual beings by nature. We belong to the spiritual world by nature, where everything is sat-cit-ananda, sat meaning eternal, full of knowledge and bliss, where we know. We don't have any need to know more. We'll understand everything. We'll have enough knowledge just to know that we are spiritual, that we are in a real eternal home. So all this pursuit of happiness and so forth is a fool's, what do they call that? Will of the wisp, chasing after wild goose chasing, whatever they call it. Wild goose chasing. We're looking for happiness. No, don't look for happiness. You want to be who you are. Once you come to that realization of who you really are, you'll find real ananda, real joy in that, beyond anything that anyone could think. Happiness beyond what anyone can think. Why? Because to be a spiritual, to recognize our spiritual existence is the most wonderful thing. Spirit means something very wonderful. We're not just a bag of molecules. It's a terrible idea. Like I said, this world is full of sorrow, misery, so many things. But when we identify with our genuine spiritual selves in relation to Krishna, Srivara Swarupai, Krishnara Nityadas, then automatically the wonder of our existence, of who we are, becomes manifest to us. If we think carefully how amazing it is that we are living beings, that there are so many things in this world that we see, sunsets and beautiful mountains and trees and wonderful people also, although there are many evil people. Just to be a person is quite an amazing thing in itself. And if we recognize the amazing nature of what we have already, of what we are already, and stop trying to think of ourselves in terms of mechanical beings, and turn to what we really are as consciousness, as persons, and has not only mundane but divine, having divine existence, divine relations, divine nature, then automatically the Ananda will come with that. It is that. So it is very important to look deeply into our spiritual nature, try to understand it, not even in a philosophical way, just in a practical way. If we just understand how wonderful it is to be a human being, what an amazing thing it is to be a person, and stop trying to think in terms of what scientists and philosophers and everybody else says about it, and just for a second, even for your own 1 second, to recognize yourself for who you are and what you are. And that will be enough. That will be enough to cure you of all these other misconceptions and doubts. When you realize really what you are, how wonderful the soul is, that you are a soul. Krishna in the Gita says, some people think of the soul or see the soul as amazing, wonderful, mysterious, unknowable. All these things are there. Does it mean we don't believe it because it's so magnificent? That we don't believe there's such a thing? No. That's the thing that we are, that makes everything else possible. And that makes everything else seem like dirt in comparison. So we just have to focus for once on what is really real, what we are as spiritual beings. And then we have to cultivate proper knowledge of those things and proper ways of remembering those things and getting in touch with those things and learning deeper about those things. That's what the intelligent person will do. And this is what the Bhagavad Gita recommends. Don't take it for granted. Don't ignore it. Don't forget it. Don't get involved in so many other things that take us away from that. And just spend, like I said, 1 minute, 1 second trying to meditate on that. And then everything, the whole world will disappear. You'll understand. It's not the real thing. It's not what you really are, not what you really want. And make investigation into that real life. And cultivate, culture that real ananda, that joy. Srila Maharaj wrote a book entitled, or they wrote a book of his lectures titled Search for Sri Krishna, Reality the Beautiful. Reality the Beautiful. If we can stop for a moment to appreciate the beauty of reality, the magnificence of it, the awesomeness. I look at a leaf, a leaf, what do you call that? A blade of grass. I look at a blade of grass and I understand that science cannot make one of those things. It cannot produce a blade of grass. Such a tiny little thing. And we cannot make it. We know so much about grass, but we can never make such a thing. With all our scientific knowledge and theories and quantum and all this other stuff, we're making atomic bombs. But what about a blade of grass? Can you make it? What kind of amazing thing is that? What type of totally amazing thing is that? And you can't stop it. It's growing everywhere. And the scientists can't make one of it, and nature is producing it like anything. Then what is going on? All right? What is really going on? Well, we might fool ourselves and think that we understand all these things. Oh, who cares about that? A tiny thing. But in fact, it's a very important thing if we can see it properly. And what to speak of a blade of grass, then what of a human being? Or an animal or anything? There's something amazing going on if we stop trying to see it in terms of that we know everything about atoms and molecules, and we can explain everything in those terms. That's nonsense. Where's the thought in an electron? The electron doesn't have the thought. We produce the electron by our thought. Our thought is there. Then we say electron. The thought doesn't come from the electrons. We've got it backwards. We think of electron, then we get confused. Well, I thought of electron there in the world that's making me, but that's my thought. It doesn't produce that thought in me. This is what the scientists, the neurophysicists are trying to say, that the electrons produce the thoughts. And what they call neurons. What are neurons? Neurons are material particles, electricity. And that electricity produces our thoughts and our consciousness. It's just the opposite. Our consciousness, our thoughts have created this whole theory of neurons and electrons and whatnot. It's by a creation of our thought, our thinking. Now, where does that thinking come from? That's the next question. And that thinking doesn't come from those things. It is somehow there for us, just like we look around and we see trees and clouds and houses and people. They're there. Thoughts are there also. But who is the producer of them? We can say, I produced my thoughts. I produced the thoughts. Yes, tell me how you did it. How did you do it? If I ask you to write your name in Swahili, if you don't know Swahili, how you can write your name in Swahili? If you don't know how to do it, you can't do it. And if I ask you how you produce your thoughts, you can't tell me. Then how are you doing it? You're not the author of your thoughts. Thought is the author of you. Mm-hmm. Descartes had it wrong. I think, when he said I think, immediately he was wrong. It was a presupposition he was making. I think, therefore I am. Who told you I think? Since when are you the author of thinking? How? If you think if you consider it carefully, then you recognize. You can lift your arm, but do you know how you do it? Huh? Do you know how you lift your arm? That's also going on somehow, mysteriously. Mysteriously, it happens. We can't say that I am controlling every movement of my arm that produces my arm's movement. All the intricacies that are involved in that, or whatever they are. It's sort of a mystical process. So there is a mystery to life. There is. Why do we try to refuse that? Why do we try to refute that? Why do we try to explain that away? There is a mystery. Why not appreciate it? Okay, we live in a mysterious reality, an amazing reality, a spiritual reality. We are part of that. That is part of us. And what is wrong with that? That's wonderful. It's wonderful. We should try to study that, understand that, appreciate that, and live that. That's what Krishna consciousness is about. You are a spiritual being. You have a spiritual relationship with a spiritual source, origin of everything. And if you can enter into that consciousness, that world, there you will find your real happiness or ananda. There you will experience it. Don't take these things as some kind of just superstition, because the modern world does not accept these things. And if you accept them, people will think, oh, you're not very modern, you're outdated. No.
With this pragyama,
you're ignoring something very important in your life and in reality. And the saints are there, the devotees and so forth, the scriptures and everything are there to remind us to teach us about these things which we so easily forget. Foolishly, we're leaving behind the greatest treasure of knowledge that all of humankind has ever known. We're foolishly neglecting that. To get what? A handful of dirt. We're interested in dirt. Even less. Stool. We're interested in that. When there is something so much higher. In comparison, it's like that. It's like excrement or dirt in comparison to what is there. So, anyhow, Bhakti Yoga, the Bhagavad Gita, the Veda, they're meant to learn about these things, to encourage cultivation of that kind of consciousness. Now, as far as understanding in some kind of analytical way, what is consciousness, and to clarify these things for people who don't have that kind of spiritual insight, then we have to study more rational thinking, which is there. Hegel has done a wonderful job in explaining things, but very few people understand him or have the ability to understand him or take the time and the detailed thinking that's required to understand what he's saying. But it's very beautiful how he has explained these things, how consciousness comes into being. But the scientists, they will say, oh, what use is philosophy? And one person asked us this question on our Sadhu-Sanga group. You're only teaching philosophy. Well, what does philosophy mean? Philosophy means rational thought. Rational thought. Is that useless thing? Huh? Since when do we find rational thought to be useless? Not significant for science. Without rational thought, science is nothing. Science is a collection of data, some facts. Then what? Is that of any use to anyone? You can have mountains of facts, but if we can't put them together into some rational way, does it have much meaning to us? No. Only because of facts of where a star is at certain times during the day, during the centuries. And we put together the laws of physics, but not just from the data that they collected. Those data, if they weren't analyzed, we would not have any laws of of astronomy or physics. When a scientist takes his data, he puts it on a chart, plots it on a chart. He tries to connect those dots. As dots, they don't mean anything, but when he tries to connect them, then he can come up with a mathematical law. The law of what's going on, what's moving those particles, if we think in terms of movement. Then a law can be created. So collecting data is not the most important thing. It's a rational thought that goes behind it that creates science, creates understanding. And that's for everything. So if we interpret our life experiences and understanding of things, not only in a scientific, but in a feeling way, what we feel, an experiential way, a phenomenological way, you could say. That also is data. And we have to put that together also with philosophy, with rational thought. That can be done. And Hegel has done that very marvelously, I find. But I also found that many people don't understand, although more and more people are beginning to appreciate what he has done. And the main obstacle has always been this material science. Just today I was reading about the Times of India. They had one article how the scientific educational center of India, they have taken out Darwin's theory of evolution from the level 10 educational curricula. And so many scientists, they protested. Of course, it turns out they put it back in the level 12 level. Anyhow, they thought teaching evolution at the very early stages was too confusing because it's a very involved subject. It involves so many things, evolution. That was too involved for people at that level to learn. Better they learn other things that will help clarify their life. Very mature, they did, but scientists immediately became upset. Why are they taking out evolution? It's so important to teach the scientific temper. You have to present the scientific temper. Everyone has to be regimented under the scientific thinking, the scientific theory. And we don't want this sentimental wondering, miraculous thinking. Einstein himself said, people can see everything rationally or they can see everything as a miracle. There are two ways of seeing. And not that seeing everything as a miracle is not rational. It's more real than the other things that pretend that they understand. Merely convincing people to think in a particular way. Constraining their thoughts, constraining their feelings to go in a particular way. Why? Because everyone is going in that way. If everyone is jumping off the Brooklyn Bridge, will you go follow also because everyone is doing it? We don't do like that. We don't want them to become like that. We don't want to be like that, and we don't want our children to be like that. We want them to think in a real way about their own lives that doesn't restrict them to thinking in one way, and that we don't even may not accept ourselves. I will have a very difficult time, actually, about Darwin's theory. To me, it's a narrative, but it doesn't really explain what happens. How did it happen? We have stories like the giraffe getting a long neck because it was eating high in the trees. But what about the other animals that had to live during that period? They didn't develop long necks. And how is it that, an amoeba could form a cat or a buffalo? What to speak of a human being? Now, their idea of a human being is they say nowadays we don't come from, they used to say we came from the apes or the chimpanzee. Now they're saying we don't come from the ape or the chimpanzee. We came from some common ancestor 10 million years ago. Then are we going to believe that? What's his ancestor? What about 10 million? Who knows what's going on 10 million years? You can say all kinds of wonderful things like that. But what kind of science is that? Science is supposed to be mathematically provable or something. And it's also supposed to be predictable. What does evolution predict? How can we make any prediction from evolution? What's the next generation or the generation, 1,000 generations ahead? What's going to happen to them? We cannot predict from evolution. So how is it scientific theory? It's a nice narrative, a nice story. To say that God created everything. Here we have there's some philosophical basis of that. Plato's ideas. He told something like that. There are eternal ideas, forms, concepts, that we are just reflections of that, or instantiations of that. That makes more sense to me than to say we were created from some formless mass that got together somehow by some mysterious means of time, billions and billions of years is just time. How does time do that? What is the influence of time in a physical sense? How does time move molecules? Or there's the movement of molecules creating time? All these things are left unanswered by evolution if we think about it carefully. So I think it's harder to believe in evolution than for me to believe in creation. The idea of manifestation of the thought processes. And that is also Hegel's philosophy. He says the absolute idea manifests itself or realizes itself, makes itself real by its own intrinsic nature. That kind of thing I can relate to. But when you say magically, somehow or other by evolution, these things all occurred, what is that process? I can't imagine it. Even though I know many things about, biology and not so many things, but a few things. How do the molecules get together and do what they do? That is not explained in biology. So like this, just thinking about your own life, what is going on, really. Don't get so caught up in this philosophy and that philosophy, this religion and that religion. They're not necessary. Appreciate what you are and what is there really in your life. And making some inquiry into that. Don't neglect what the scriptures have to say in these areas. They have something very valuable. Otherwise, why would they be kept for so long, so many generations, if they were of no value to anyone? These biology books, they will be outdated in a few years. But the Vedas, they will never be outdated. In 1,000 years' time, who will remember all this stuff about Darwin and whatnot? Theories have changed in science so often. Every 50 years, every 100 years, they have a new theory. The Vedas are there. Maharaj, what do you say?
Yes, Maharaj, as you told, they are making this field of study, this biology, as something, study of dead things. They are not, studying the living thing. I mean, what is the prospect of life? That is not there. Purpose is not there at all. It is only, study of something, dead, purposeless reality. So how can that really help the society of, living beings? So they are increasingly becoming unhappy and, trying to throw society into that plane rather than trying to think how to realize the real nature of life, its goal, and, all these, aspects of life which comes, life displays those wonderful qualities, subjective qualities that are being not a part of biology. Only biology is studying the bonding, the reactions, all these things. It is not studying happiness, love, affection, mercy. All these things are not part of biology, as if they are not the characteristics of living entities. So then this whole thing becoming like, misrepresentation of life.
How do we get there? How do we get from real life to biology? How do we get there?
Yes. To
That's the
get
question.
there,
Not
actually,
how
they have to
biology
put
works.
themselves into laboratory.
They're trying to explain how biology gets to life. But we like to understand, how do we get from life to biology? What happened? what people were thinking. This is Maya. This is how illusion works. This is how illusions are generated. You have a real life. You are a real person. And then they come to some explanation, like biology, atoms. There's a long history of science. And to study that history is very revealing how people come to such ideas. And it's very good to get out of those, get from those ideas to the original thing. They're very important also to recognize what they have done and how people are getting these things out mixed up. A simple thing like thinking about electrons, first of all, it had to start with a thought. Electron is a thought. It had to start with thought. And now they're saying electron produced the thought. You see? No, that's not how it happened historically. It's the thought that produced the electron. And you might say, well, you have some confusion about produced. How? How does that happen? What does that mean? These things are important to investigate. It takes a little time to study these things and become aware. By studying these things, we become aware of them. We become more and more, increase our consciousness, our awareness. And that is real knowledge. When we go into those things. Anyhow, getting a little bit.
I'll study some of the text in this month only. I'll get some break. I'll study the text which you have written, all the text I'll go through during my vacations in this month only, in May. Yes, I've decided I'll do that. Then I'll get back to you.
Yes, well, just take 1 second to understand who you are. Just take 1 second to meditate on that. Like
that's the most difficult.
That's the most important thing.
Difficult question.
Not difficult. Most important thing. Stop all your other things and just appreciate what wonderful being a soul is. But how wonderful it is being a soul. Part of God. Evil. Dandavat Pragya Didi. We haven't seen you in a while. Hope you are well. So happy to see you here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Yeah.
Sorry I couldn't come, Maharaj. I have my family here. So
We're happy you're here again.
yes,
okay.
wonderful.
All right, Maharaj, anything you want to closing words?
Maharaj, thank you very much for this nice association and all this discussion.
Maharaj, we wish you well also with your help of Tungaviti and her operation. We hope everything goes well.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Dandavat to all of you. Please be well. Please be safe. Be happy. Your devotional service. Dandavat. 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 Love you all.
I am Sripad Paramahamsa Srila Bhakti Niskam Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai.
Yeah. Yeah.